Seth starts another monotonous day early in the morning. He lives a lonely life without any friends or family, and his only sense of companionship comes from the dogs at the animal control center where he works. After feeding the animals, he visits Lexi's cage and cuddles with her, seeking a brief moment of affection. One evening, while riding the bus home, Seth spots Holly and approaches her. She doesn't recognize him at first, so he reminds her that they went to high school together, though they were never close. He was a year ahead and knew her because she was well-liked. He notices her writing in a notebook and assumes she's a writer. Holly corrects him, saying she's a waitress and only writes for fun. Seth tries to joke around, but it falls flat and makes things awkward. As Holly prepares to get off the bus, Seth tries to ask her out, but she doesn't hear him. Later that night, Seth searches for Holly on social media and is happy to discover that she owns a dog. The following day, he asks his coworker Nate for advice on approaching women. Nate advises him to be confident and use humor. Soon after, Seth is heartbroken to find out Lexi is scheduled to be euthanized. He gently removes her from her cage and comforts her on the table. The vet suggests that he could adopt her, but Seth explains that his apartment doesn't allow pets and he can't afford to move. After Lexi is put down, Seth takes her remains to be cremated. Later, as he removes her profile from the cage, he hears something in a restricted area. When he checks it out, there's nothing unusual. After work, Seth obsessively combs through Holly's social media, taking notes on everything he learns about her. He analyzes her photos closely and eventually discovers the diner where she works. The next day, he visits the diner, but Holly still doesn't remember him. He tries complimenting her hair, but she remains distant and professional. After she brings his food, Seth again asks her out. Holly turns him down, saying she has a boyfriend. Seth insists she doesn't, which alarms her. She leaves the bill and walks away. That night, Holly senses someone watching her on her way home. It's revealed that Seth is hiding in the bushes outside her house. Inside, Holly tells her roommate Claire, but Claire dismisses her concerns as paranoia. Holly then receives a call from her drunk ex, Eric. After hanging up, Claire encourages her to forgive Eric, claiming being alone is hard, but Holly refuses and drinks instead. The next morning, Holly arrives at work to find a large bouquet and a note that says, "Be mine." Assuming Eric sent it, she confronts him at the bar where he works. Eric denies sending the flowers and tries to win her back, but Holly reminds him that he cheated. Seth, having followed her, watches from a distance. When Holly steps outside to smoke and write, Seth approaches her again. She still doesn't recognize him at first, but when he admits he sent the flowers, she realizes he's the man who's been following her. Seth insists he isn't dangerous and just wants to talk, claiming he's never forgotten her since school. Holly tries to walk away, but Seth blocks her path. She shoves him and rushes back inside, where she tells Eric that Seth tried to grab her. Eric leaps over the bar and punches Seth, who falls to the floor laughing uncontrollably. Eric kicks him again before Holly intervenes. Eric throws Seth out, warning him never to return. While lying on the ground, Seth sees that Holly accidentally dropped her notebook. At home, Seth tends to his injuries and begins reading the notebook, which turns out to be Holly's personal journal filled with her emotional thoughts and frustrations. He stays up all night reading it, feeling deeply connected to her anger and vulnerability. The next day at work, Seth enters the off-limits section of the shelter and discovers a hatch in the floor. Curious, he climbs down and finds an old, abandoned room that still has access to the building's power supply. The discovery sparks an idea. Over the following days, Seth becomes consumed with preparation. He orders supplies online and follows tutorials to construct a cage inside the hidden room. While continuing to obsess over Holly's journal, he also starts stealing medicine from the shelter and infirmary. At home, he tests the sedative on himself. It works immediately, knocking him out without any side effects. A few nights later, Holly senses she's being followed on her way home. She pauses and looks around, but Seth is already concealed. She continues walking, then turns again, convinced she's not alone. Reacting quickly, she sprays pepper spray, only to accidentally hit a homeless man. Terrified, she runs, unaware that Seth is still watching from the shadows. Curious, he trails the man, who's now screaming in pain. Later that same night, Seth sneaks into Holly's apartment by climbing through the window. She's in the bathroom taking her medication and hears a suspicious noise. When she checks, she finds the window open and shuts it. But once she gets into bed, Seth ambushes her and injects the sedative. She resists for a moment, then collapses. Seth transports her to the shelter, hiding her in a large box. When Nate questions him, Seth claims their supervisor called him in urgently for a late-night delivery. Nate accepts the explanation and only asks Seth to sign a log. As Seth wheels the box in, Holly begins to stir and lets out a sound. Seth fakes a cough to cover it. She makes another noise, and Nate hears it, but brushes it off as noise from the air conditioner. Seth locks Holly in the cage in the hidden room. When she wakes up alone, she panics and tries to break free, but only injures herself, ripping off a fingernail in the process. She screams for help, but the only response comes from the barking dogs, which Nate ignores, assuming it's normal behavior. In the morning, Seth visits Holly, bringing her a bedpan and trying to speak kindly. She responds with rage and insults. Frustrated, Seth denies her food and says they'll try again tomorrow. As he walks away, ignoring her screams, Holly begins filing at the bars, trying to weaken the chain. The next day, Seth finally gives her some water and food. She clings to his leg and begs him not to leave, but he insists that setting boundaries is essential to building their relationship, then coldly repeats that they'll continue the next day. That night, Holly starts hallucinating that Claire, her roommate, is in the room with her. Claire mocks her and describes the terrible things Seth will do. Overwhelmed, Holly yells at her to shut up. Eventually, she uses the bedpan, but a rat appears, startling her. She panics and kills it in a frenzy. The following day, Seth is forced to clean up the blood. Holly questions him, will he hurt her? He says no. But when she asks if he plans to kill her, he replies, I hope not, which terrifies her. Seth explains that her survival depends on whether he can save her. Holly thinks he's part of some cult or delusional belief system, but Seth claims he's doing this for her, not himself, because she's special. He says she made him feel seen, but over time he realized it wasn't the real her. It was the version she wanted others to believe in. Now he wants to discover who she truly is. If there's no authenticity in her, then he won't let her go. Holly just hurls insults at him and Seth leaves. As he exits the restricted area, he runs into Nate, who reminds him he shouldn't be down there. Nate plans to assign him cleaning duties but notices the door is locked and moves on. That night, Holly's hallucination of Claire asks her what she's going to do. Holly answers, she'll wait. The next morning, Seth returns, holding her journal. He tells her he pities her because her writing about love is filled with sorrow. Holly shoots back that a stalker can't possibly understand love. Then Seth brings up Claire. He says he heard Holly speaking in two voices. He asks if Claire is with her now. Holly replies no, but adds that she can see Claire standing behind him. Holly insists she knows Claire isn't real, at least not in the present. But Seth clarifies he's not just talking about the current situation. He reveals that she's been hallucinating Claire for a long time, even before now. As Seth flips through her journal, the real story comes to light. Claire was once her actual roommate, back when Holly was engaged to Eric. Things turned dark when Holly discovered, by snooping through Eric's emails, that he and Claire had been having an affair. Hurt and furious, Holly confronted Claire during a car ride. Though Claire apologized and said it didn't mean anything, Holly snapped, driving recklessly while shouting about the betrayal. After swerving to avoid several vehicles, she eventually lost control and crashed. Both women regained consciousness, bleeding. When Holly heard Claire's voice, something inside her broke. She pulled a shard of glass from her stomach and stabbed Claire in the eye, killing her. The police later concluded Claire died in the crash. Back in the present, Holly says she writes fiction, and Seth admits this is why he needed proof before going to the authorities. He's been secretly tracking her for days and claims he knows the truth. Ever since Claire's death, Holly has been murdering strangers in brutal ways. He believes she set the homeless man on fire. According to Seth, her journal is a subconscious confession. She wants to be caught and punished. But he insists he's not here to punish her. He's here to save her. Holly agrees, pretending to want redemption just to keep him calm. After Seth leaves, Claire appears again, sarcastically applauding Holly for her act. Holly admits she's lying and is only giving Seth hope so she can manipulate him further. During Seth's next visit, he brings her water and a cloth to clean up, but he's visibly distracted, fixated on her skin. They discuss the murders, and Holly bluntly says she enjoys killing. Seth refuses to believe that, insisting she's just traumatized and acting out. Holly responds by telling a bizarre story about sharks smashing their heads against glass tanks, then imitates the behavior herself. She only stops when he asks. Then she mocks him, suggesting that if she were to die, the police would blame him. Unnerved, Seth leaves. At work, Seth's supervisor calls him in for a talk, reprimanding him for neglecting his duties. He isn't fired yet but receives a formal warning. One more slip-up and he's done. The next time he visits Holly, Seth only gives her 2 chocolate bars, saying she needs to learn she's not in control. Holly tries manipulating him again, fantasizing about a future where they live happily together by the sea. Seth softens and agrees to bring more food. When he leaves to fetch snacks, Nate sees him coming out of the restricted area and becomes suspicious. This time, the hatch isn't locked. Nate goes down and is horrified to find Holly imprisoned. She begs for help, and he starts breaking the lock. At that moment, Seth returns. Holly signals him to act. While Nate's distracted, Seth creeps up behind and tries to knock him out. Nate fights back, slamming Seth into the wall. In desperation, Seth stabs him repeatedly. As Nate tries to escape, Holly trips him. Calmly, she encourages Seth to finish the job. He caves in Nate's skull with a cinder block while Holly watches with satisfaction. When it's over, Seth breaks down emotionally. Holly consoles him and helps him dispose of the evidence. They remove Nate's teeth, nails, and fingerprints using the medical tools, dismember the body, feed it to the shelter dogs, and burn what's left in the crematory. After showering, Seth calls his boss, claiming Nate left for an errand and never returned. Later, he dumps the teeth in a river. He returns to clean up the blood while Holly mocks and teases him. She implies that he's attracted to the darkness inside her. She even tries to make him touch her intimately, but he pulls away. Back in the office area, Seth finds a detective going through Nate's belongings. He's questioned about Nate's disappearance, and his answers don't add up. The detective also notes Seth's strange use of past tense when referring to Nate. With the investigation ongoing, Seth moves carefully through the shelter. He brings Holly food, but she won't eat or speak. Days pass before he convinces her to talk again. She tells him she wants a piece of his finger as proof of his love. At first, he refuses. Then she launches into another emotional manipulation, saying she's always felt disconnected from the world and that only he understands her. Seth flees to the bathroom and breaks down. After long contemplation, he returns. Holly promises to cooperate if he gives her what she wants. Seth, trembling, sits by the cage and cuts off his own finger. As he screams in agony, Holly pretends to reach for it, but snatches the knife instead and threatens to kill herself unless he opens the cage. Seth unlocks it. Holly, shaky but determined, walks out. She caresses Seth's face and kisses him, then slits his throat. The Claire hallucination reappears, pointing toward the open door. Time passes. Now, Holly is back with Eric and preparing to publish her journal as a fictional novel. One day, she checks Eric's phone and discovers he's cheating again. Oddly, she remains calm and simply hands him the phone. Later, she visits an abandoned warehouse, where Seth is still alive but caged. Horrifically mutilated, he's become her outlet. Every time Holly feels the urge to kill, she tortures him instead. In her mind, she's saved. And so is he. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this.